Pre-Algebra, Chapter 3, Section 3, Multiplying Rational Number. So a quick check here, writing each rational number as a fraction, -2 3/4. So as a fraction, so you multiply down and add up, and you keep that sign out front. So this will be a negative, so that'll be 8 plus 3, so that's 11/4. 29 can be rewritten as 29/1. Write each decimal as a fraction 6/10, so instead of 6/10, we put 6/10, and we can reduce that down to 3/5. 3 and 2500, so 3, and then we put 25/100, reduce it down, and we get 3 1/4. Then we get our repeating decimal here. So n equals 3/10. And because we only have one thing repeating, we can multiply both sides by 10 without changing it. So when we multiply by 10 here, we get 10n equals 3.3 repeating. Then we subtract an n from both sides. So we subtract an n here, and we subtract what n equals on the other side, which was that negative repeating 3. Not a negative repeating 3, but we subtract the repeating 3. So we get 9n equals 3. Then we can divide both sides by 9, and we get n equals, when we reduce this down, to 1/3. So now we have it as a fraction. Which of the following fractions is between 2/10 and 2500ths? So this is 0.25 right here. Let's see, calculator. So we know that 1/4 is 0.25. Let's try 4 divided by 21. And we get 1900, so that's below. 2 divided by 9. We get 0.22222, so that's definitely there. So it's probably C, but we'll test out that 1/6 real quick. And we get 0.16, so that's below. So that's not what we need either. So our answer here is C. What happens when you add, subtract, multiply, and divide rational numbers? Well, we're going to figure out something else to do with them today. We can multiply. Let's see how that goes with some of our word problems. What did we learn today? Multiplying positive and negative fractions. Evaluate algebraic expressions with fractions. So now here we go. Find 1/6 times 2/3. Write the product in simplest form. So this is stuff that we have done for a while. When we multiply, we can first cross reduce. So we can say what goes into both 6 and 2. 2 goes into 2 once, and into 6 3 times. And then we multiply straight across. So we get 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. We get 1/9. Now you could have done like they did here, which was just multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2. 6 times 3 is 18, and then reduce. I find the numbers get really big here, so I prefer to cross reduce first. If you try it, 2/5 times 5/8. Our 5s can cancel out to become a 1. 2 can go into 2 once, and into 8 4 times, and we end up with 1/4. Next, find each product, write in simplest form. So we have a positive 3/4 times a negative 7/9. If we multiply straight across, actually they cross-reduced first, so that's nice. The 3 goes into 3, and the 3 goes into 9. So now we have 1 times -7, -7. 4 times 3 is 12, and we get -7/12, and it's already simplified. When we start off with a mixed number, instead of a fraction or an improper fraction, we have to first turn it into an improper fraction. So 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1, so we get 7/3. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 5 is 19/7. We can cross-reduce those 7s out to become a 1. We multiply across. 1 times 19, 3 times 1. We get 19/3. We take 19, divide it by 3 if you forget how. 19 goes in the house, 3 goes outside. 3 goes into 19 6 times. We get 18. We have a remainder of 1 and nothing to bring down. So that is 1/3. So 6 and 1/3. Trying a couple here. We have -1/4 times 2/7. I can see that the 2 goes into 2 once and into 4 twice, but 1 and 7 do not cross reduce. So I get negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. 2 times 7 is 14, and I get negative 1/14. 1 1/2 times 3 2/3. So this multiply down, add up, so I get 3/2 times 11/3. I can cross reduce, and I get 11/2. I can also see that I can't reduce this way or this way. 2 can't go into 11, so I know it is fully reduced. So 2 goes into 11 5 times. Subtract, and I get 5.5. So evaluate, so now we need to plug things in. So evaluate 1/2 AB when A equals 6/7 and B equals negative 4/9. So we plugged in, we put parentheses around everything that we substituted in. They cross-reduced the 2 and the 6, and they also reduced the 2 with the 4. So it can reduce both of those things there. The 3, let's see. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. They reduced out a 3 here with the 9 and the 3 with the 6. Okay, and then they reduced the 2 and the 4. Okay, that's what I confused myself for a second there, sorry. So you can only cross-reduce out one time because it is multiplication. Then we multiplied straight across. So trying one here. We have 2/3 xy when x equals negative 3/4 and y equals negative 1/2. Plugging it in, so we have 2/3 times a negative 3/4 times a negative 1/2. So we cross reduce. I can cross reduce here. This becomes a 1, this becomes a 2, this becomes a 1, this becomes a 1. There's nothing else I can cross reduce, so 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. 2 negatives make a positive when they multiply. So I get 1 over 1 times 2 times 2 is 4. So 1/4. The first hill on a certain roller coaster is 225 feet tall. The first drop, so the first hill is 225 feet. So let's visualize this here. The first drop on the roller coaster is about 11/20 as tall as the first coaster. I think that means this is the first hill. So that means it doesn't go all the way down. It's somewhere around in here. So from here to here is 11/20 of 225. Find the height of the hill on the second roller coaster. Okay. Okay, so we do have 2 roller coasters here, 1 and 2. So this one's 225, and this one's 11/20 of 225. So we are going to be doing our multiplication here. We can take 5 into both of these. So this will give us a 4, and this will give us a 4 and a 5. Nothing else goes away here. So I'm going to multiply across. So 11 times 45, 495 over 4. 4 goes into 4 once. Bring down the 9. 4 goes in here 2. It's an 8. It's a 3. Okay, I transposed some numbers here. This would be 255. Hopefully you caught that before I did. So this should be 255, which gives me the 51. So 2 or 561. So that gives me 561 over 4. 561. Should have got rid of those too. So that's a 1. That's a 4. Bring down the 1. Goes in there 0 times. Remainder of 1. So that's 140 and 1/4. So the height of the drop is about 140 feet. So trying one here. Rashid collects cash donations for underprivileged children every October. He's a very good person. This October, he collected $784. Last year, he collected 5/8 as much. So taking 5/8 as much as we had before, how much did Rashid collect in October? So put that over a 1. I know that 2 can go in here, possibly 4. So let me see. 784 divided by 4 is 196. So this can become a 2. This can become a 196. I can see that 2 can go in there again. So divided by 2, and I get 98. I can't reduce with that 5, so now I'm going to multiply by 5. And I get 490 over 1. So $490 is how much he collected last October. So to summarize, to multiply fractions, multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. You can also cross-reduce first. That is fine as well.